Hello learners, welcome back to session 6 of Unit 3. In the previous session, we looked at norm reference test and then the criterion reference test. This session, we are going to talk much about the concept and practice of continuous assessment. I am Unkaila Dasmani, your course instructor. By the end of this session, you should be able to explain what continuous assessment is, explain the nature and characteristics of continuous assessment, explain the advantages and disadvantages of using the continuous assessment, and also distinguish between school-based assessment and continuous assessment. Let's begin by looking at what is continuous assessment. It's a mechanism whereby the final grading of learners in the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains of learning systematically takes account of all their performances during a given period of schooling. That is Faleyalo 1986. It can be referred to as periodically assessing or weighing performance of students in order to determine progress made in the teaching learning process. So once you are doing that, then we say you are doing what you call the continuous assessment. Periodically, you assess to see how learning is going on, how the students are progressing as far as learning is concerned. So it's often used to evaluate the progress of students on a regular basis. They can therefore be done daily, weekly, monthly, depending on the goals of teaching and learning. So some teachers every day you have to do, some teachers weekly, monthly, but if you don't do them, please, I'm sorry, it's very bad. A teacher should always do the continuous assessment. Most of the time, Ghana here, what we do is that when the semester is end, I'm talking about the basic schools, getting closer to semester, the teachers will now rush, both secondary and then basic. The teachers will rush and then be looking for student exercises and then be piling them up for the continuous assessment. Some teachers even guess for students, and that's very bad. It should not be done in that way. Take your time and do it one after the other. So that's the continuous assessment. Okay, so let's look at nature and characteristics of continuous assessment. First is continuous assessment is systematic. It should be a systematic. So, and this year we will say that assessment should be conducted, the assessment tools to be used, and the time intervals for the assessment, and then maybe the records you want to record, and the results are all planned and should be carried out in a systematic manner. So we want to conduct continuous assessments, everything should be planned. As I say, you don't need to stand up and when exams are approaching before you start calling for students and start to record. No, it should be already, all should be planned as such. The second is continuous assessment is comprehensive. It's very comprehensive. This is because many types of instruments are used in determining the student performance. So there can be announced quiz, unannounced quiz, or oral presentation, or exercises, assignment, practical work, project work. It combines a lot of assessment techniques. That is why we say it's a comprehensive. Okay. And then continuous assessment is cumulative. So a decision to be made about student takes into account all previous decisions about such student. So this requires the keeping cumulative records of each student. So it contains most decisions about the student previously and then current one. So that we say is cumulative, combine previous decisions about the students. Okay. Another one is a guidance-oriented. Continuous assessment is guidance-oriented. So the information gathered from the varied activities is used to guide students' placement, career opportunities. You can talk about vocational training, when schools the person wants to go. So it should be guidance-oriented. You with your students, and you've conducted the continuous assessment, you've piled them up using a comprehensive strategies and then different approaches, and also you systematic. So you believe, you trust your continuous assessment you've done. So you can use that one to give guidance to the student based on where the student can go. Maybe course, if it's basic school, you can advise the student to go and read maybe general arts, or based on the students' records you have as a teacher, you should know where the students' difficulties are and then strengths are. So you can advise the person to go into visual arts, science, and business, and the rest. Okay. So the next one is continuous assessment is formative. I think this one is just easy to understand. It's a formative. We've talked about that already. It's ongoing. As you're doing it, it's ongoing. Okay. Continuous assessment is diagnostic. That's the next one. So you can look for more. You can look for more. Okay. So diagnostic. Some of the results can be used to check the entering behavior of students in a particular learning situation. So it should be a diagnostic. Okay. All right. So you can look for more. Let's look at advantages of continuous assessment. The first one is provides useful information about academic progress of the learner. I've said that already. It increases self-awareness for students who, through continuous assessment, come to understand their proficiencies and knowledge gaps. So it answers all these questions. So you can look for more about advantages of continuous assessment. You have a number of them in your course material. Disadvantages of continuous assessment. There were inadequate qualified teachers to cope with the large number of students in classes. Yes, and that is true. The mode of administration of continuous assessment was carelessly handled. So continuous assessment is actually one of the things that was difficult to be taken, because when you have 50 students in your class and one person, you want comprehensive assessment about these 50 students. Just imagine how the process you are going through, and some teachers were not taught how to do. So because of that, lack of knowledge of how it's being done is also another problem. Because of many of the classes are large, some dishonest teachers are tempted to reduce the quality of the test. As I said, they're lazy, they don't want to work hard. So what they do is that just create assessment for the student, and that becomes very bad. Another one is the influence of external examination like BEC and WAEC. That also affects the continuous assessment. So this actually puts much pressure on teachers to shift attention to completion of the syllabus than continuous assessment, which was meant to contribute to the formative aspect of assessment. Some teachers think that continuous assessment doesn't go anywhere. So the most important thing is student passing WAEC and BEC. Once you pass BEC, you get very good secondary school in Ghana to attend. And once you pass WAEC, you get the top universities in Ghana and the way to attend. So their focus is to teach students or to finish the syllabus, not to conduct the continuous assessment. And as Alfonso said, the teachers manufacture marks for assessment, not done. They just dash students some marks for free, and then they will not go through. Okay, using continuous assessment to improve teaching. On what way can we use continuous to improve teaching? One is motivation. Prompting feedback to students on their performance encourage them to learn much harder. So when you're learning and then you conduct continuous assessment, you give feedback to students. Those who did well, you compliment them. Those who did not do well, you give a very nice talk and advice and give them encouragement. And this motivates students to learn hard. Also, individual differences. There are visual learners, that is learning by sight, auditory by hearing, kinesthetic and tactical learners learning by active participation or active and doing. So when you have such kind of students, you can see that continuous assessment cater for those. It's cater for those individual differences. So I do not go by cheap and poor only. Okay, so that is using continuous assessment to improve teaching. So that's great. So you can also talk about record keeping. So record keeping, these records are often used for guidance and counseling purposes and to diagnose students' weakness in specific content areas. So using continuous assessment to improve teaching and learning, and one is record keeping. You keep student records. At first, when you want to go to different school, they call for your school cumulative record to see, and that helps you where your new school you are going. It will help them to know what you were, whom you are, your achievements from the previous school. Okay, another one is examination more practices. Continuous assessment has the potential of minimizing examination malpractices associated with students' anxiety caused by summative examinations. So unlike summative examination where you conduct exams at the end of the period or topic, year, or entire duration, for continuous assessment, it's not like that. Every day, daily, or maybe weekly. So you keep on doing it over and over, so the students become used to that, and there's no fear in them. If you say today you have class tests, it's normal thing because you have been doing class tests every day. It's easier for students to do that. Assignment every day, you've been giving assignments, so it's okay for that. But when you say you have what's in next year, you see they start the fear and panic, and that is another disadvantage. So continuous assessment actually helps to eliminate examination malpractices. Okay, let's look at school-based assessment. A new school-based assessment was to replace continuous assessment. It was introduced into the school system from September 2008. Okay, so the school-based system consists of 12 assessments a year instead of the 33 assessments the previous continuous assessment. So here was 12 assessments, but that was 33. Okay, so the school-based assessment consists of end-of-month tests. You also have homework or assignments, especially designed for school-based assessment. Then also project work. So the school-based assessment is a very effective system for teaching and learning if carried out properly. This new system has led to a reduction in the number of people assessments, a reduction in the number of marks recorded by students, by class teachers, and an improvement in the learning through student-centered. So the school-based assessment actually talks more about the student-centered. Okay, it has reduced 60% of the workload compared to the previous continuous assessment systems. So I'm talking about a new assessment. So I'll read more, just read more about that. It has reduced the workloads by 64%. Okay, let's look at the purposes of school-based assessment. To standardize the practice of internal school-based assessment in all schools in the country. In the country, not boundary. Okay. To provide reduced assessment tasks for each of the primary school subjects, as I've said, it was reduced by 64% as compared to the previous one. To provide teachers with guidelines for constructing assessment items, questions, and other assessment tasks. Okay, so you can read more about the purposes of school-based assessment in your course material. The purposes continue. Okay, we have another one here, guidance, also a number of them. Just read more about that. So in this session, if you look at the concepts of continuous assessment, you also look at the characteristics of continuous assessment. Don't forget about advantages and disadvantages of continuous assessment, and also school-based assessment has also been considered. Read more from your course material, so cultivate the habit of reading and learning. Thank you very much for your time. We meet for the next session.